Hello, my name is Juanita Schaefer, and today I'm going to talk about Chapter 5, Maintaining Balance in Organisms from the BSCS Biology, a Human Approach curriculum. The major concepts covered in Chapter 5 include homeostatic responses, interaction of body systems, the respiratory system, the endocrine system, buffering, behavioral mechanisms that maintain homeostasis, pH and homeostasis, chemistry of acids and bases, as well as positive and negative feedback mechanisms. The first activity of Chapter 5, the Engage Explore, the Body Responds. Students will watch just a body response video from the Teacher Resource CD, and they match external situations to descriptions of internal physiologic events. This is a very engaging activity, and students absolutely love it. This is followed by an Explore, What's Your Temperature Now? So the goal here is that students are able to explain the body's response to cold to highlight temperature regulation in the human body. So during this activity, students design and conduct a lab to examine how cooling the external environment will change the internal temperature. So this is a wonderful opportunity for students to practice the skills of collecting, organizing, graphing, and analyzing data. The materials you'll need for this experiment include 24 thermistors or ethanol thermometers, a stopwatch or clock with a second hand, and crushed ice. The second activity is called Stepping Up the Pace. Again, this is a very engaging activity. Students will design and conduct a lab to examine the relationship between exercise, breathing rate, and heart rate. Again, students have the chance to collect, organize, graph, and analyze data. So here students are going to need instruction about how to collect data on pulse and breathing rate. To support the content of this activity, there are two readings: Careful Coordination, which talks about the endocrine and nervous systems, and The Breath of Life, the role of the respiratory system. The next activity, and elaborate, on the scale of 0 to 14, students look at pH. This may be the first time they've ever heard of acids or bases, or they don't recall much about it. So you'll need to spend some time reviewing what it means for a substance to be acidic or what it means for it to be basic. You'll also need to teach students how to use a pH meter. The pH meter on the slide is pretty common within the BPS classroom. So you'll want to make sure you know how to use those. You'll need to calibrate those before this activity as well. So during this activity, students learn about how acids and bases affect pH. Students will conduct a lab using cell homogenates to examine the role of buffers in maintaining homeostasis. So for this activity, you can use a lot of different substances as your cell homogenate. The curriculum calls for using potato and liver, again highlighting that both animals and plants have cells and that they both must buffer to maintain homeostasis. So this is always fun to do in front of the class. Placing food items in a blender and blending them up is very engaging to the kids. So again, you can use almost anything to create your cell homogenate, from liver to potato to apple. You can also use yeast cells in this activity. After the students collect their data, they again will have the chance to graph and analyze it. So this is a sample graph from one of my students' labs. And as you can see, there are 4 lines on this graph, and students are going to need help with setting up their graph. The elaborate activity, How Did They Stay So Cool? Students compare and contrast different methods of temperature regulation in lizards and other animals. So this reading highlights the difference between ectotherms and endotherms. There are video clips that go along with this activity called Temperature Regulation in Animals. And there's also a reading in the text called Behavior and Homeostasis, examining the role of behavior in maintaining internal balance. By the end of this chapter, the goal is that students are able to define interactions between the body systems, These include the circulatory, urinary, respiratory, nervous systems, as well as the endocrine system in maintaining homeostasis. You also want students to be able to use the data from their investigations to, again, highlight how the body maintains homeostasis. This chapter ends with an evaluate homeostasis in their critter. So students have the chance to go back and add to their unique critter they created at the end of Unit 1. So students will demonstrate their knowledge of homeostasis by expanding on their description. They're going to have to describe how their critter regulates internal temperature, how it regulates water balance, and they'll also have to demonstrate their understanding of how these systems interact to keep their organism alive. If you have any questions about the content or activities, please feel free to contact me at jschaeferratzlaff@bostonpublicschools.org. Have fun. This is a great curriculum.